Well, last week, Parliament passed the reviewed Ghana Meteorological Agency GMet Act 682 into law. The amended act specifies the percentage of charges to be used as source of money for the National Meteorological Fund and for related purposes. The Meteorological Agency Act 2004 provided for the establishment of the Ghana Meteo Agency under the Ministry of Communications to replace the Meteorological Service Department set up under the Civil Services as a department responsible for providing weather forecasts for activities relating to agriculture, marine, civil aviation, and mitigation of natural disaster. Well, after 15 years of implementing that act, the agency has faced a number of challenges inhibiting the full realization of the objects of the act. To address those challenges, government amended the law to strengthen the finances of the agencies and expand the representation on its governing board. So what's going to change for the organization and Ghanaians? I have here in the studio Dr. Michael Tanu, he's Director General of the Ghana Meteorological Agency. So you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let me take this opportunity to actually greet your numerous viewers.
Right. So let's talk about this, the changes that have been made to the Act. What exactly are the significant parts that Ghanaians should be really interested in?
The significant part is that this is going to help the Ghana Meteorological Agency to be retooled. Now, what I mean by retooling is that be able to get the state-of-art equipment, and then that definitely will improve the forecast. So if you are giving forecasts, we should be very accurate and timely.
Accuracy is a thing that a lot of people do not necessarily associate with the Ghana Meteorological Agency. There are times where people will pass very cynic comments. Sometimes people will, make various suggestions that sometimes mock the ability for the Ghana Meteorological Agency to predict weather accurately. Will this change with the new act?
Yeah, I think prior to that, if you look quite recently, people are now appreciating the Met Services forecast being more accurate, a bit accurate. So it means that we now going to get very accurate forecasts, because what happened is that we had lacked certain vital equipment. We need radar, and if I talk about radar, we talk about Doppler radar, which can even look at the spec of what the system is coming, when is it beginning. And then we can even look at the leading edge of the systems to see, and then be able to calculate where is it going to go. So we're going to look at the intensities and all those things. And once these monies are being made to, then definitely be able to acquire these radar and other equipments. And this is supposed to put about 3 main radar, one in Accra, one in Kumasi, and one in the northern region, so that we get a proper bird's eye view of the whole country. And therefore, here, Ghanaians should take the Met Service very serious, because it's going to give us a very whole view of the country, and therefore forecasts should be timely and accurate. Let
me take you back to 2015, the very unfortunate disaster that we experienced in this country, where over 100 people died. Some people have said that if we were to predict that weather for the day a bit more accurately, and if the Metro Agency had the reputation at the time that makes people believe them, then, because I'm sure that you would have said that there was some information out there, that did people believe that information at all based on, again, the reputation? So how will that change in terms of our experience of that unfortunate disaster? To what extent can you say that Ghana will not, based on what you have now, experience anything like that?
Now, you see, as you say, those in 2015 thereabout, the Ghana Meteorological Agency was not much resourced. They were using most conventional equipment. Most of these equipments were obsolete. But then here we didn't have even a radar working. We're using man equipment. And most of the time, anthropogenic errors can affect these things. But here we are getting the automatic weather stations, which should be able to get the accuracy and be able to transmit, because most of these automatic weather stations do take the weather and then transmit them to wherever they are supposed to, so that forecasters will be able to get this information timely, and therefore the accuracy of these things will then be enhanced.
Well, I'm sure it's going to take a while, but hopefully we'll get there. Let's talk about making this accurate information. First of all, we want the information to be accurate. Secondly, it also has to be accessible to people. So we know that, you know, Ghana Metro Agency will send some, you know, updates on weather, what to expect, etc. Even though some people have said that sometimes you don't even understand. There's always something like thunderous, something I've forgotten, thunder clouds. There's always thunder clouds in there. People don't really understand. Now, if you take any mobile phone, there are weather. It gives you weather predictions. So it can tell you what the temperature is going to be, whether there will be rain, and this is on everybody's mobile phone. Now, if we have an agency that's supposed to provide us, you know, let's say localized and accurate prediction, why is it that we don't have it on any mobile app, or it's not, we don't have to, we can't access it on our mobile phones? Yeah,
the issue now is that we started already developing some of these apps.
Okay.
And now we have to take into consideration the medium of sending this information. And we have to look at the citizenry, what's their education level. And then be able to tailor these needs to the people who need them. Because it's not everybody who has these sophisticated or smartphones. There are some who use this, what do you call it? The young phones.
Okay, so the phones that are not Android and those that are not iPhones, etc., you mean?
Yeah, so definitely we have to look at maybe using symbols, because not everybody who can understand. But then if they say there's some form of education, and then we can even use the public address systems in various districts and other things. I think that will definitely be able to help.
So
but with the phone distance, we've started building applications.
Well, that's taking quite a while.
Yeah, but that all because that this things cost. There's a lot of money involved in doing all of these things. And then if you look at the national budget, which is given to the Met Service, it was not adequate. But then the resourcing of these things will let us take some of these things up. So we believe that in the very near future, some of these issues will be addressed.
So two quick things before we go. I'll talk about the funding after this one, which is that I was discussing, I was asking for an update for you behind the scenes before we came on air. What has become of, I was told, a collaboration that was supposed to be going on between the Metro Agency and University of Energy and Natural Resources. They had this station. It's a report that we did as part of a series we do on Thursdays called Tech Thursday. The story was that they are building this station where it was part of a cosmic project where Ghana, because of our positioning, they have come to set up a station in Sunyai at the University of Energy and Natural Resources, where then Ghana can then cash in or benefit, because they're benefiting from our positioning on the Mediterranean, and then we can benefit from that station by getting access to information that helps us predict weather more accurately. I don't know how much of that information is available to the Metro Agency and how far we have come, if there is any collaboration.
Actually, I think that thing has not been advanced too much with us. So maybe if it's in the near future, because when I took office around 2017, but as to that time, I mean, nothing of that sort has been actually put in place. So maybe we can then go back to the drawing board and see.
We can share that story with you.
If there's anything like satellite information and other things that people can, then we can tap in, because it's going to be an add-on information which will help us to predict better.
Because this was a satellite that was receiving information from several satellites across the country, across the world, from China, from the US, etc. And I think that we'll make that story available to you. But let's talk about funding. In this reviewed act, we hear about funding there as well. Tell us about the sources of funding and how sustainable it is even.
Okay, what happened is that, unlike previously, we were only having a memorandum of understanding with them, and that was only for the landing charges. So with Ghana Civil Aviation. But then the issue was that when aviation got split up into two, we have Ghana Airport Company and Ghana Civil Aviation. Then the percentage of sharing was different. Aviation was taking 40% of the landing charges, and then the Ghana Airport Company was taking 60% of the charges. Now there was a treaty which was the Chicago Convention, which was around 1944, where ICAO, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, and the World Meteorological Organization, which is an umbrella of which oversees all the Met services in all the various countries, came together that no, for aviation purposes, you cannot deal with weather. Weather is very, very critical. You cannot do away with weather. So the issue was then that Met services should be able to recover some cost, because equipment and other things, day in and day out, technology is changing, and therefore you have to get the state-of-the-art equipment to do so. So the collection of this money became a problem, and therefore we had to have an MOU at the end of the month. You have to go to them and as if you are begging, yes, beg for those monies.
But this act changes that.
Which what's not being paid. But this act now changes that, because once it is a bill now, if the government gives it the assent, then it becomes a law. Once it becomes a law, then the collection of these monies becomes so easy for us, so that we can even use it to plan. Now, one issue is that we have our staff members. We have very qualified boys who are coming from the universities. We train them. Now, you have to be able to retain them. But if you train them and the resources of remuneration and other things are bad, they look at other avenues where and go. And it will be very bad for us. So once these monies come in, it's going to really equip the Met services to be able to take on capacity building, to build the staff the way they want them, to be able to retain them too. Because you can retain them by make sure the remunerations and other things are good. And that is what this funding takes us to.
And also the fact that you need to train them with the right equipment for the generational needs, which obviously have changed over the years. Well, I'll take your final words, but is this funding approach sustainable in your view?
Oh yes, because
it is sustainable.
It's sustainable because once it's there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we just have to look at the aviation sectors only. There are other people where we render services to. Now the oil companies and things are also there. And the VRA, we have some MOU with them. The oil companies, because it's offshore, definitely they take information. Weather information is critical over the ocean. Because storms at sea and other things, wave tides and other things are all important. So we need to, when we build our capacity very well, we can then serve them. Because if you have these radar sets, then we'll be able to serve them. Then we'll be able to rake in some source of funding.
Well, I'm hopeful that we'll get to a point where people will lose the sarcasm with which they mention the Meteorological Agency and the pessimism, if you like, the skepticism with which they receive weather reports from the Ghana Meteorological Agency. What are your final words, sir?
Now, my final word is that Ghanaians should now begin to have trust with the Ghana Met services, because much as this funding has also come, it also tells us that we should also be up and doing. We have to up our game. We have to make sure that we can serve people better, because then it puts some kind of like people looking at what we are supposed to do. And we are assuring Ghanaians that the sarcasm that used to be there should be erased, and then they should see us and take us serious, because we are here to deliver for the socio-economic development.
Okay, well, maybe you can go embark on some kind of branding, rebranding, if you like. That won't cost much, or that won't cost anything at all. That would be preferable. Thank you very much, for coming. Dr. Michael Tanu is Director General of the Ghana Meteorological Agency. They want to assure Ghanaians that they have a new face now. So trust them more with the weather predictions when they bring them your way. Thank you very much, Doctor, for coming once again.